Today we're going to start creaming for cakes. That's our lesson this week. Last week we did creaming method for cookies. This week we're going to cream for cakes. Very similar up to a certain point, and then it changes. Again, we do start with the paddle attachment, and our sugar and our butter goes into the bowl. So that's going to mix for a couple minutes until it becomes uniform, and you can't distinguish the sugar from the butter or the butter from the sugar. Probably going to take time. I had this getting soft. I had this getting soft most of the morning.
So we have to speak up more.
So my butter and sugar should come together relatively quickly. Then, like our cookies, our eggs are going to be next, one at a time. So we're going to beat them to full volume because we get a lot more volume out of cakes than we do out of cookies. Then we have our dry ingredients. In this case, we have baking powder because we're making a cake, we need more rise. And we have milk. Now, when we get to that stage, I'll show you. The difference will be that we're going to alternate flour and milk, flour and milk, flour and milk until they're incorporated. And the reason for that is some cake recipes have a lot more liquid, and we need some of that flour to get in there to absorb that liquid. That's the reason we alternate. That is the predominant difference between cookies and cakes. Now, if we look in our mixer, we could see that butter and sugar come together. We're just going to scrape it down, get that little bit on the bottom. Again, my eggs were out at room temperature, so they should be nice and soft. Softer eggs whip up a lot better. Drop this down. And we're going to do one egg at a time. Whoa! How do I know when to add the next egg? Very good question. When it gets fully incorporated, my batter is together. And we'll take a look, and I'm going to scrape again. Now, what would happen if I added all these eggs at once? Well, what would happen is, one, we would not get the full volume out of each egg. And secondly, it would be too much liquid for the batter to absorb. It wouldn't emulsify. Think of when you're making the salad dressing. If you're adding the oil too quickly to emulsify dressing, it can't hold all that at once. So we have to incorporate some air into there. And we have to beat. So now we're ready for our second one. Picked up some fresh strawberries the other day that we cleaned in some whipped cream. That's going to go very nice with this pound cake that we're making, by the way. And each egg you add is going to take a little bit longer. Why? We're adding more volume to our bowl. We're adding more liquid to the batter in general. This is about a medium-high speed. When we go to add the flour, we're going to lower that considerably because the flour will be all over our kitchen otherwise. So we got our second egg incorporated. And you can see we're still together. Butter, sugar, the volume is growing a little because we're adding to the bowl. Just give that a little turn. Now we're ready for our last egg. People ask me, can you overmix these eggs? Absolutely. What happens when you overmix eggs? Well, you beat more air into them than the batter can actually sustain. So what happens is that air will expand in the oven, but then it'll collapse, and the structure of that batter is not made to hold an excessive amount of air. Looking nice. Give it a little wipe. I'm just going to scrape the bottom again. Scrape my paddle. Just going to run it for a second or two. Now here's our predominant difference between cookies and cakes. To this point, it was the same. We creamed our butter and sugar. We added our eggs. Now we're going to add our flour and alternate it with the milk. We're going to do 3 additions of flour and 2 additions of milk. So what does that mean? That means I'm going to put 1/3 of the flour in this first time. About 1/3. Then I'm going to put, after this is incorporated, I'm going to put half the milk in there. So this is going, and you'll notice that paddle is going to push that flour to the outside. It's not going to incorporate all of it. Some of it's going to stick to the side of the bowl because the more volume we add to this bowl, the only place it can go is out. So you'll notice that here, I'll have to shut it off and scrape it down. Common mistakes people make is they'll do that and they'll walk away. And if we were making bread, that would be great because we want to develop some of that gluten. But when we're making cookies and cakes, we don't want to overdevelop that gluten because it will become very tough. And that'll show in our finished product. So I want to make sure all this flour is incorporated before I start adding some of the milk. And then I'm going to stream the milk in. Like I said, we're going to use about half of this milk.
Bless you.
We're going to get that incorporated. Again, you see we're developing a nice smooth batter here. There's no lumps, there's no graininess. It doesn't look broken or curdled. That lets me know my eggs were incorporated properly. Now I'm ready for my second addition of flour, which at this point is going to be 2/3 of the flour or half of what's remaining in this bowl. Again, a nice low speed so we can incorporate that. Low to medium low. You see it comes together quickly. Now this is where people would walk away and make that mistake. And that batter would overdevelop. This addition of milk is going to be my last. Again, I'm going to stream it slowly with the mixer button to get that incorporated. So I could still curdle this batter if I decided to add this too quickly. Get all the milk incorporated, shut it again. You notice it's a very methodical process. I'm shutting, I'm scraping, I'm shutting, I'm scraping. But the one good thing about baking is it'll teach you patience because you just can't really dump everything in the bowl and mix it. Straight dough method with bread, probably, but that's a different lesson for another day. My last bit of flour in here. I'm going to incorporate this. Now, before I did this and gathered my ingredients, I preheated my oven and I prepped my pans. What do I mean by prepping my pans? Greased and floured, sprayed and floured. So now we'll notice, I'll pull this up. We have a little bit. Now that last bit of flour on the last addition, you could fold in with your spatula or sometimes just take your paddle and fold it over. People get obsessed with getting that in there and they run the machine. And again, the more you run the machine, the more the likelihood or chances that you could overmix this. So we'll just scrape this down easily. And I'm gonna fill these containers, and people often ask me, Chef, what do I use to fill them? I don't care if you use a teaspoon, as long as it's a level, consistent measuring device. Usually a larger ice cream or portion scoop, or a mixing cup, say take a half a cup and level it off. And we can put a half a cup in each. All right, probably a cup and a half in each. We'll see how much batter we have here. We're gonna make 3 small ones. They're gonna go in the oven. I don't have the ovens I have at school, so this is not going to come out as quickly as it does at school, but nonetheless, it's still gonna taste just as good. That's a cup in each. That looks pretty good. Using a half cup measure to obtain that. There's a half. There's another half. These are relatively small loaf pans, so I'm gonna start with about 15 or 20 minutes on these. And the larger ones, these usually take about maybe 40 minutes or so to cook. Key is having the same amount in each, because if we threw 2 of us in the oven at the same time, and we are not of the same size and stature, what'll happen is one of us will be cooked before the other one, and the smaller one would be toast, would be significantly burnt by the time the larger or taller one was cooked. So that's why we want to ensure that we have an equal amount in each one. If I was in school and I had my balance scale, I could put them on the scale next to each other and balance it out. But this is a uniform measure, and this is going to ensure I have so much in each. So now when they're done, we go to test the usual way. Stick a toothpick or a cake tester in there, make sure it comes out clean or with a few moist crumbs, and then we're good. So we're going to throw these in the oven. I'm going to take them and we're going to tap these down. The usual messing around, dropping on the counter, doing the ooh it's hot, 3 or 4 times. So and that's pretty much it. So let's review very quickly. We creamed our butter and sugar. That was step 1. This is all after we gathered our ingredients, prepped our pans, and heated our oven. So we creamed our butter and sugar. Our second step was to mix the eggs one at a time, incorporate them. And then thirdly, we alternated flour and milk, flour and milk, flour and milk until that was all incorporated. Evenly portioned them in our pans, and now they're set for the oven. Place them in the oven. I'll set a timer about 15 minutes, and then we're going to take a look at what they look like when they're done.
Okay.
So we can see it. If I touch it, it springs back a little bit. My finger's not going through it, so I know there's no loose batter. Cake tester comes out clean. And then sides of the pan, you can see it's recessed in. Food shrinks as you cook it, so I know that they're done. We'll let them sit for about 15 or 20 minutes. And then we'll take them out of the pans, and they'll be ready for some nice whipped cream and strawberries later.